All righty. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or whenever you're tuning in to the Growing Our Future podcast, we're glad you're here. And I tell you, every episode, it just seems to get better and better. We're always bringing folks on that just have incredible hearts of serving and pouring into others and sharing their experience, their expertise, their insights. And today is no different. As a matter of fact, today we're getting two for the price of one. And they've got a great story. I'm not going to steal that story thunder. I'm going to let them tell their story. But today we are honored to have Steve and Barbie Mosley, who run, Steve is the chairman or the president of the Texas Past State Officer Organization, the PSOs. And Barbie, you're the vice chair. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Or vice president of the Texas Past State Officer Association. So yes, welcome to our show. How are y'all doing today?
Good.
Great. Thanks for having us. We're excited.
Well, we're glad to have you on here. Okay, so every episode we start off the same way. And so we're going to start the same way today. Steve, Barbie, what are you grateful for today?
I'm grateful for her. Is that right? Is that a good answer? I tell you what, I'm grateful for. I know that we're in an environment of FFA right now, but I'm very grateful for that opportunity that I had. I say her because she came along with that opportunity, and it may be premature to get into that story, but we did meet at an FFA leadership event, and so the rest was history. So it has been a big part of our lives. We haven't known each other outside of the FFA jacket, and so it's been a big part of our lives, ever since we've known each other, and it's carried over into our kids' lives as well. So,
How about you, Barbie?
Gosh, I'm grateful for so many things, but primarily, of course, I'm grateful for my relationship with God, and beyond grateful for my family. I've been abundantly blessed, and there's times when I honestly, I can't even believe that I've been selected to live the life that I live, because I just feel so grateful for everything I do. I'm grateful that even though it is not fun right now for educators, I'm grateful that I get to have a revolving door every single day where I get to try my very best to influence young minds, from all different walks of life, from all different backgrounds, but I can see the future in each one of their eyes each day. And so that's an incredible blessing. As challenging and stressful as it is, it's worth every moment. And I wake up every day knowing I love what I do. So I'm just grateful for everything, Aaron. There's not a lot I'm not grateful for.
That's really good though. And the reason we're doing that, by the way, the foundation's job is development. And just like the generous support that we receive from the past state officers, I tell every sponsor that at the end of every dollar, at the end of every penny, there is an opportunity for a kid or an opportunity for a teacher. And there's so much to be grateful for. Yeah. And I just think that sometimes we listen to the news or we scroll through social media and we get distracted by the negative, when it doesn't take much to look around and just realize how much we have to be grateful for.
Absolutely.
And I echo everything y'all said. Family, friend, FFA friends, the experiences that we have, and now the opportunity we get to pour into those that'll follow in our footsteps.
Absolutely.
That's just
it's
pretty.
A gift. Yeah. It's a gift for sure.
So anyway, thank y'all for being here. So let's talk a little bit about y'all's journey and kind of how your paths came together, and then how those paths turned into the Past State Officer Organization. So I'll let whoever wants to go first. Tell us how that happened.
Well, if you date back to 1994, that's where our journey together began. I was an incoming state officer, and that was back in the day whenever you went through leadership training together at Trinidad. And I walked in, and it sounds cliche, but I knew right then that my future was in front of me more than just FFA. But we had an instant connection for a lot of reasons. It was one of the first times that I was truly surrounded by not just Steve, but just like-minded individuals that had the same kind of heart and passion that I felt. And that's the first time really when you leave your hometown and go out and serve in a community outside of your norm. And so for me, it was eye-opening. And we we instantly connected and had the opportunity, and it was a blessing. That whole summer we traveled together as teams and were able to serve all over the state of Texas. And it just made me have such a deep respect for him in such a way, because I felt like I had finally met somebody that I knew that the service wasn't going to just be a year long, that he was going to have that type of mindset forever. So fast forward, and here we sit, 26 years later with 3 children who fell in love with the exact same program that we've loved. They've stayed engaged and grown, and we're still plugged in. Probably about 10 years ago was whenever we had finally got through the hard stage of raising babies and went back to a state convention, and just knew that it was our obligation to step back in and serve, that it had given us so much in our lives. And it's such a huge part of who we are, that we knew that we had to give back. And so we got plugged in. And a wise man, Mr. Alejandro, once told me that it takes time, and that if we were going to try to make a positive change, that we could not expect to wake up and it change overnight. And so we both talked about that and took it to heart, and knew that to make a positive change, it was going to take, and you even worded it, to change a culture, it was going to take years. And so here we sit 10 years later, still plugging at it, and wouldn't have it any other way. And it's heartwarming to see the growth and the involvement that the organization has had. And so that's where we are, and we don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon, as long as everybody will have our service. But we've loved it, and new faces that have plugged back in and given back. We've watched even just conventions over the last 2 years, the people that have fallen in love. Yep. So it's been wonderful.
Yeah, what's cool about, we really call it's kind of like a fraternity. We have a shared experience with other state officers that it doesn't matter. It transcends through generations. It doesn't matter if you ran down that aisle 40 years ago, you had that same experience as these kids now. And it's been great for us to connect those generations and hear them tell each other the stories. And the new ones are talking to past state officers that are their parents' age and reliving those experiences. And when we first went to that camp and we became state officers, that's really the first time many of us got out of our house and we traveled the state of Texas, and we had a map at that point. We didn't have a phone telling us where to go. So, we learned how to, and we were in a position where we had a lot of responsibility, but we learned how to have fun together, how to disagree with each other, and how to serve an organization that was bigger than us. And I think as we got out of that, and Barbie talked about it, it's the life cycle of a past state officer. And we see it every year as we start reconnecting people and getting them back on the reunion teams. They have their family, they go create their career. And at some point we bring them back and they have this aha moment that this was such a big part of my life. And the reason I am here today and doing the things that we're doing, that many of them say, what can we do and what can we give back? And that's been so good for Barbie and I to be a part of.
And he's right. It literally, the commonality among all state officers is that for years and years and years, as you watch them reconnect, and that passion for service is just, it's deep in their veins. And it's the most incredible thing to watch that fire get relit and just instantly want to see people serve and give back, whether it's, monetarily, or it's, sitting at a judge's table, or it's doing anything that they can do. It's watching that passion reignite and realize that there's more to life than just in your time of actual physical service as a young adult, that it's lifelong. So that's been fun.
Aaron, I don't think I've told you this, but this is kind of the time of the year that we're researching and trying to get the reunion teams back together. And so it's been fun for us it's like a scavenger hunt. We're trying to find these people. Right. And so you find them. And unfortunately, we come across obituaries pretty often. And so I read these obituaries and I started saving them because 90% of those obituaries talk about their service to the FFA when they were in high school. And I've got a whole list of them, and it just blows me back when I see that. So that is not them telling the story. It's their families telling the story through them. And so that was been really cool for me to see.
It's profound that what's such a deep part of it becomes a deep part of who you are, no matter how many years pass. It's a huge part of who you are.
I will just tell you that I really appreciate the leadership role that you two have brought to the past state officers. Years and years and years ago, back in the 90s, I was the chairman or president, whatever it is, of the PSOs. And we had a good time, and we all got together, and, we shared stories, and, that is a part of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we did back in the day. We actually did a little philanthropy, but you guys have really taken this to a whole new level. And we've talked about this many times, that philanthropy is not just money. Philanthropy is the giving of time, talents, or treasure. And I just really think it's incredible when we look at the number of past state officers now that are giving back some of their time as judges, or they're giving some of their talent to go speak at a local FFA chapter meeting. And then obviously now at convention, I can't tell you how proud it makes me feel to see the PSO logo on the sponsor billboard. I'm like, these are the folks that did it. Now they're seen giving back. And I can't tell you how proud that makes me feel. So I just want y'all to know how much I appreciate the leadership that y'all brought to the table, and the fact that you've been willing to be persistent. I talk about that in the world of development all the time, that persistence breaks resistance, and consistency creates credibility. It doesn't mean that we're not going to have hiccups in life, and it doesn't mean that we're always going to hit home runs, but we dang sure got to step up to the plate every time we're asked. And it may mean a strikeout every now and then.
Absolutely.
But, that's the one thing that FFA taught us is, you got to get back up at the plate. You got to take a swing. And the good thing is you look around, and at least with the PSOs and the FFA family, you got people that are cheering you on.
Absolutely, yes.
And kind of coach you. And the result is that I think you've changed culture, by the way. I don't think you've made it. I don't think you want to make it.
No, absolutely not.
Because you want to set a standard that whoever follows in our footsteps says, wow, I've got work to do, because Steve and Barbie really did it well. So what are we going to do to make it better? I mean, I want somebody one day to look at my job and go, yeah, he was good, but I'm better. And I want that. I want somebody to step up to the plate and to feel like that maybe something y'all did or we did contributed to their confidence and their skill set to be able to say that I want to do it better.
Right. Yeah. Well, and we're blessed to be surrounded by incredible people. We have a wonderful officer team. Kathy Beck is incredible. Leanne Housley, Robert Henson, Terry Romero served with us, who goes back and gets plugged into her community endlessly. So, AJ has helped. We've had all these people that have just stepped up, and they don't care about a title. They don't care about anything. They're just like, here's what I'm good at. What can I do? And so it's been wonderful. It's been wonderful. It's been an honor, honestly.
It really has. And you talk about the gifts and talents. We feel like this is our talent. This is what we're supposed to do at this time, because it would be difficult to do this as individuals, all that it takes, but we can talk in the evenings. And like she says, we've got a great team that, especially during COVID, we talked probably more during COVID with our team than we do now. But we feel like this is what we're supposed to do, and it's been great for us. And we've seen, like Barbie said, we've seen so many other people come up and say, hey, I'd like to do this. And it's like AJ manning the booth at the convention, and Mr. Cobb, they love that. And the kids love seeing them and interacting with them. And that was something that they just said, I feel like this is a hole and we want to fill it. And they do a fantastic job at that.
Well, it's just fun. I know y'all enjoy it too. You walk around the convention and you see all those blue jackets, and they have no idea we were past state officers.
No. They're like, who's this old lady? Yeah.
And it's just fun though to talk to them and, quiz them about the FFA and offer words of encouragement. And every now and then we slip up and they probably figure out we're past state officers.
Right.
But Yeah, and I do love that y'all have also, like you mentioned, AJ, creating a kind of being the catalyst to our fellowship side. So we create kind of a PSO gathering where we all just kind of get together, and it's kind of talking about the organization, where there's opportunities to plug in, ideas for convention. And there's a lot of really cool ideas that have come out of some of that. And I think there's a lot of stuff in the making that I think is going to be really good for the PSO organization. The mentor, I want us to get to where we have a mentor program. I think I've shared that with y'all before. I want to create a Texas FFA mentors, and imagine what it would be like to have a database of PSOs that you could call on, of Ford scholars that you could call on, of foundation ambassadors that you could call on, just people that they say, well, I don't know that I could talk to Steve or Barbie or Aaron, but maybe I could talk to, Tyler Koch or Laura Gonzalez or, one of the Mosley girls. It's like, maybe I can find a connection there. But if we don't ever provide that, then, sometimes unless you stay connected to the network, you don't really know where to look.
Right.
So I think, that's what's exciting to me is, there's a lot more confidence there putting the organization out there because of the improved culture that y'all have created. Because that now when people come in, there's a welcoming culture there. There's a culture there of, we want your talent. We want you to be involved. If you want to write us a check, great. If not, guess what? We still want you to judge. We still want you to speak. We still want you to get involved.
Yep.
Yes.
Well, I think when we first got involved, I think the biggest gap we saw was just the organization and getting people together. And that's been an ongoing deal. We really focus on it for the reunion year teams and getting those back together. But what I've found, and we've kind of resurfaced that, we've done a first group and we're back around the second time. And I'm finding out that PSOs move a lot. That thing is out of date pretty often. So it's an effort to keep up with that and make sure that we continue to communicate with each other. But we've also found that when we do communicate and there's a need, that group steps up, and it's been great to see.
I'll challenge you with one.
Okay.
So there's a little project that I'm working on behind the scenes called Texas FFA Influencers. I believe that there's a lot of former members who have gone out into the world of work, technology, medicine, business, entertainment, that have influenced the entire industry that they're in. I think it would be fun to maybe look at some of our PSOs and say, who are our PSO influencers?
You say that, it's funny. We're in the middle of trying to get them. And I looked at this year, and every year we start researching them. We say, wow, look at this person. I know who that is. Look at what they've done.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think, this is an all-star cast of reunion year team. So I'll roll off a few names on this one for you. We've got a state rep, current state rep that is going to be there. We've got an athletic director at UTEP. We've got government affairs consultant. We've got multiple, this group seems to have a lot of lawyers on it and bankers. There's a lot of lawyers and bankers in this group. We have a past A&M president, whoop. We have a couple of vets, and we also have the previous Texas Ag Commissioner in this group. So there's a lot of influencers just on this reunion team that I'm excited to get together and talk to those guys.
Well, and that's kind of what I'm talking about. When you really start drilling down, I mean, I think about Randy Brady, who gave me my Lone Star degree. And, Randy Brady is one of the most noted heart surgeons in the Houston area. He worked with Dr. DeBecke at the DeBecke Institute. And I'm sitting here thinking, look at the folks that have had these incredible careers that influenced things. Influenced them. Going forward, think about that. They wore that blue and gold jacket. And I think it's going to be really cool when we start kind of highlighting some of those folks on stage. And if all goes well, hopefully, I hope if not this year, it's going to happen. But I'm working on some that I can't wait to see them, to put them on stage and have people go, wow, I had no idea.
Right.
I had a cool story last year. Brooke Rollins, and where she's at, She was on going on stage with her team last year and was in and out of meetings. And there was a major political announcement during our convention that she was a part of. So you look at the red jumpsuit that she had on stage. She was in a press conference in one of those side rooms, multiple press conferences that day, influencing and talking about what was going on. And she's at the forefront of what was going on.
And that's a great example of what I'm talking about right there. You know, look at Charlie Scruggs. Do you remember Charlie Scruggs? I don't know if y'all remember that name or not.
I know the name.
So you'll have to go back and look at your history and look at Charlie Scruggs. And, you know, Charlie, when I was hired, he was the chairman of the foundation board.
Oh, wow.
And I remember Charlie and I, matter of fact, I was in Hillsboro earlier today, and the hotel that I stayed at was right by the restaurant that I remember having dinner with Charlie and his wife. And I remember going to Charlie's funeral. And I just remember it was a pretty sobering moment, because I thought, here's a man who dedicated his career to the Farm Progress magazine, to Southern Living magazine, who helped eradicate the screwworm from the livestock industry, an influencer that most people don't know who he was. And I thought, that's the kind of stories we've got to tell.
Yeah.
Right.
So anyway, off topic.
Yep.
All right, let's get back to what we're supposed to be talking about.
I love it.
But I do think it's and I think this is another example of PSOs. We all carry a passion in our heart to see others succeed and to appreciate the shoulders of the folks that we stand on that went before us.
Without question.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I think this discussion is good for that as well. We want to put people on our shoulders, but we want to lift them up a little bit higher, so maybe they get to something that we didn't get to.
Right.
I know I need all the help I can get reaching.
You know we do.
Yeah.
You know we do. You're in good company.
Yes, you are.
So when we think about ag science education, Steve, you got a great career at Cisco Foods. Barbie, you've had an incredible career, both thinking about just little things that I know you've done, photography, Farm Bureau, and as an educator. Think back to those days. Let's just think right now. We know there's 155,000 members. We know not everybody's going to watch these podcasts, but the ones that do are typically the ones looking for a competitive edge. So let's take them back. Steve, what did you learn in ag science and FFA, or in your leadership development, Barbie, that you learned that you still use to this day?
One of my favorite, I guess, contests was chapter conducting. And we had to learn to really work together, and to see a good chapter conducting team now operate. It's just like an orchestra to me. They know how each other think. They can predict something before something happens. And I just love that contest. And so to work with someone and to be on the same page and to push each other, it was multiple things that I was involved in, but that one contest really made a difference in my life, and kind of opened the doors for other things for me. Taught me how to think on my feet, how to speak, how to listen to those guys, and how to look down the road and kind of predict what was going on. So I love that contest. Really, I would say that helped me a lot. So that, along with the work ethic that comes along with, we're competitors. This organization raises competitors, and the good thing about it is we want to win, but we love to see the people around us do well as well. You see that at all the stock shows now. I love it when our girls were showing and their best friend won grand champion and they were over there hugging their neck, even though they beat them. So I love that part of what we do and what we stand for. I would say that teamwork was probably the thing that really helped me a lot.
Very good. What about you, Barbie?
I think probably what resonated most with me, so much to the fact that I ended up majoring in it, but is the power of communication and the ability to communicate well, both in the written word and to verbalize is power. I mean, I'm an English teacher now because of it, but I just think that that's something that even in today's world, it's no matter how much technology happens, you still have to be able to effectively communicate in order to make progress. You can have all the passion in your heart you want, but if you can't verbalize it or market it in the correct way, then you can't get other people to buy in to what you're saying. So I think that communication has so much power, and you have to be able to see through the ones that are communicating truthfully. But I do think that communication has so much power. And I think that started for me in an ag science classroom.
Wow.
So
That's good. By the way, we've had other guests that have said the exact same thing, Barbie. So
oh goodness.
that's good stuff. Yeah, I think about our friend. Y'all are in South Texas, and y'all are really on the cusp of being in South Texas. Where y'all are at. But those that are familiar with the great state of Texas, a lot of times people say San Antonio, South Texas, and I'm like, you got another 4 or 5 hours to go to get down to South Texas. But our good friend Carlos Guerra there at La Muñeca Cattle Company, I love what Carlos always says: no show, no tell, no sell. And he challenges those kids to communicate, to show you've got to show your value. You got to show your competitive edge. You got to be able to tell people why. And if you can't, guess what? You're not going to make the sale.
Yeah. Right. Well, we met his grandson one time at the state convention. He was young. He must be raising his kids that way, because that young man blew me away. So he had me sold, and he probably was 11 years old.
Yeah, he was not very old at all.
We were both.
He is an FFA member now, by the way.
Awesome.
Yeah. As you might suspect, he's a competitor.
I would imagine.
It wouldn't surprise me if he's governor of Texas one day. That kid was impressive. So I told Steve, you better hire this kid right now. Like, he was incredible.
So it's funny that you said that, because my son, William, is a competitive soccer player. And there are these camps around called ID camps. And they're where you can go to show off your skills in hopes that you might land a scholarship. But according to, I guess, the rules of college athletics, they can't really talk to you till after you get through your sophomore year.
Oh, gosh.
But
it's torture for William, I bet.
But it still doesn't hurt to participate. It doesn't hurt, like we're talking here. Learn how to communicate. Right. Learn how to do these things that FFA gives you that you can carry for years down the road. So, all right. So now let's talk about that. So that was good stuff. So you talked about things that you learned in the classroom that you still use today. Let's talk about leadership today that we can share with kids. If y'all were going to give kids leadership tips today and say, listen, let me tell you, if I could put y'all in front of 1,082 FFA chapters and said, Steve, Barbie, give them the goods, what would you tell them in terms of leadership development? What skills would you tell them they need to possess to be successful in life?
There is a TED Talk that I absolutely love that I have shown to my classroom students before in the past, and it's Angela Duckworth, and the name of it is The Power of Passion and Perseverance. And in it, she says she was an educator and she couldn't understand. She was doing everything the way you were supposed to: test the students, give data. And she said, the smartest students were not always the best performers. That sometimes some of my students with maybe a little bit lower IQ were outperforming, and I couldn't put my finger on it. She said, so much to the fact that I ended up quitting education and going and getting a degree in psychology. Wow. She said, so she did this deep research. You would love it. You have to watch it. This is right up your alley. But they did research, and they found like the most successful people in life, the best leaders, the smartest students, the one thing that they had that nobody else had was grit. And it was that you had to understand that life was not a sprint, that it's a marathon, and that you have got to keep trying. We have personally you've watched that FFA, the evolvement of FFA, we can keep our core values the same, but you have to ebb and flow. You have to be willing to, I think you said it earlier when we were just talking about the different styles of or you said it, the different styles of leadership. Like some days you're going to have to be this type of leader, and the next day when you're dealing with a different group of people, you're going to have to be a different type of leader. You have to be able to move with the evolving time. And that does not mean that your core changes.
That's right.
It just means that you are filling a need where it is needed, dealing with the type of person that you're dealing with. So at the end of the day, It's not a sprint, it's a marathon, and you just got to keep putting one foot in front of the other. Sometimes you're going to strike out and sometimes you're going to hit a home run, but you just got to keep swinging. So for me, that's what I'm constantly trying to instill it in my students every single day, because they are little future leaders, and it's very easy today. I tell them all the time, don't tap out, don't throw in the towel. You got to keep going. It's not going to be easy. You're at the beginning. You're at the very, very beginning, but there's really never a finish line. There's not a time in our life when we cannot grow and change and evolve. So if I was going to say anything in the world, I would say grit is what makes you a good leader.
Yeah. I have to echo that. Go ahead. Were you going to say something?
I just wanted to say, I couldn't agree with you more. I will come back to that, Barbie, here in a second, but I want to hear from Steve.
No, I totally agree. And she referenced a race several times. And if you would have asked me as a teenager if I wanted to watch a track race, I would have told you no 100 times. There's a much more interesting things that I would want to do. But all three of our girls were long distance runners, and so they ran the 800. And I watched, and I wouldn't say they were necessarily the fastest, but they trained and they went out there, and that grit won them that race so many times. And I remember sitting in the stands almost crying, and I can almost cry now thinking about it, of what they're doing and the passion that they have to win, that they just laid it all on the line. And so I watch a track race all day long, and I love seeing those kids, because it manifests itself in them when they're running. You can see how hard that they're working and trying. And so you say grit and you see that image of them running and giving everything they got. I can't echo what she says enough.
All right. So, man, that was good stuff, Steve. Barbie, talking about grit and finish the race. I mean, that was good stuff. And also, I just think it is fun, Steve, when you talk about watching your family. We're their greatest cheerleaders because we're the ones sitting there cheering them on. I admit it, I'm a loudmouth, but that's just the way I am, because
I couldn't see that.
I'm pretty reserved, but I want my kids to do well, and I want them to know that I'm there, and I always want them to hear that voice. Yeah. And know, and that's, Barbie, that's what I loved what you said, just being an educator. Krista McCullough was the teacher in space from when they did the Space Shuttle Challenger, and her partner, I became friends with. Her name was Susan Forte, and Susan Forte was the teacher in space from the state of Florida, and she was an ag teacher.
Oh, wow.
And I never forgot what Krista McCullough said. She said, "I touch the future I teach." And I just love what you said a while ago, because in the classroom, our teachers are never going to be told thank you enough. And people really will never understand and appreciate all that our teachers do. And I will be a little bit biased here. They'll never understand all that an ag science teacher does compared to their colleagues. But just the fact that you said what you said, that you're doing everything you can to pour into those kids. Everywhere I go, I use a quote that they attribute to Abraham Lincoln. He said, "The philosophy of the schoolroom in one generation will be the philosophy of government in the next." And I always tell people, I said, you need to let that sink in. Because
it was something that was so heavy on my heart. I always knew that I felt called to teach. And you mentioned some of my a couple of my prior careers. And there were so many nights that I would tell Steve, I'm just supposed to be in a classroom. And he finally said, "You have got to quit talking about it and do it." Yeah. And so I'm so thankful that I did, because I just instantly felt peace and felt like I was doing exactly what God called me to do. And it's definitely the hardest low-paying job I've ever had in my life, but there's no teacher in it for the money, that's for sure. But it's such a blessing. It really, really is.
Yeah, you talk about the government. I want to go back to the PSO organization for a minute, because as we're researching and we're finding all of our alumni, it is abundantly clear that they are involved in their government. And there's many that are on school boards, that are on Farm Bureau boards, that are on fair boards, that are at Houston and San Antonio Livestock Show giving back. And so, and I mentioned several that are on state, national level, but there's so many that are at the local level giving back to their communities that I really liked the fact that you said that.
Well, I'm going to tell you, y'all have participated with our LEAD program for teachers. So we created the LEAD program for teachers. The LEAD program for teachers gave way to the legislative LEAD program for teachers, which gave way now to a legislative LEAD for Texas FFA members. And I will tell you, if it wasn't for the past state officers and some of the people that are in positions of policymaking, and they come in and we don't talk politics, we don't talk Democrats and Republicans or controversial issues. We talked about the importance of our democracy.
Right.
And, you know, how can you be a good leader if you don't know who your city councilman or your county commissioner or your state representative or senators or congressmen, and know the difference between a House bill and a House resolution, to know the difference between a Senate bill and a Senate. But again, Steve, it all started because we saw all this resource that we had, and we said, we've got to plug these kids in hopes that we plant those seeds that they'll take those jobs one day. And it's amazing. I'll tell you, the first legislative LEAD, the feedback that we got that blew me away, Steve, that I did not expect, was the number of high school students that said, I had no idea that that could be a career for me. I had no idea that I could advocate for a trade association or be involved. They didn't know. So again, it's just another opportunity for our PSOs to get back involved. I've got a PSO coming up for one of my interviews here, I think either this week or next week, that I'm really excited to get her back involved. She's with HEB in Central Market. She's from down in the Rio Grande Valley, by the way. She was a past state officer. But
We love HEB. Our oldest daughter works for HEB.
I know that. And I'm excited to get this one back involved as well. So anyway. All right. Well, we got to start wrapping up. Hey, by the way, I got to tell y'all, I got the coolest phone call the other day, and I hope it means as much to you two as it did to me. But we got a contribution a few years back from an FFA chapter in Paris, Missouri.
Wow.
And it came with this very nice note, and they said, we're just really impressed with what y'all are doing there at the foundation, and we just wanted to give you some support. And I told them, well, by gosh, I'm coming up there to tell you thank you. And I drove up to Paris, Missouri, which is out in the middle of nowhere. And
Didn't know it existed. Yeah.
I saw one of the most outstanding ag chapters that I've ever visited. And I met these teachers, Josh Bondi in particular, that just really stood out. The other day, Josh calls me and he says, oh, by the way, Aaron, I got to tell you, I went online and I bought a couple of those books. And he said, I use these in my classroom all the time.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I just want Steve and Barbie to know we did this little project where we took the concept of Zig Ziglar's little book of big quotes, and we did a Texas FFA little book of big quotes. And the quotes that are in this little book right here are in 4 categories. They're in core values, they're in leadership, agriculture, and FFA. And all the quotes are original quotes from past state officers. We'll put the link in the podcast where if anybody would like to pick up a copy, you can. And there's just some great words of wisdom in here. Great.
Good ones.
There's some very good ones. There's some profound ones like Call Your Mama in there.
I love Call Your Mom.
Yeah.
One of my favorites.
Yeah.
There's some good ones in there. But anyway, thank y'all for y'all's help with this, because I just thought, how cool was that, though, that we got a call from another state? I've already got foundation directors all over the country that are buying these because they're showing them to their states and they're saying, look at this idea. So
it's great.
Thank y'all for your support.
Glad
Okay.
to be a part of it.
All right. So one of the ways that we wrap up all of our podcasts is with a fun question. So y'all get a fun question.
Let's go.
Are you ready?
We're ready.
All right. What's the best concert you've ever been to?
Oh, George Strait, hands down.
Yep. And that was recent.
Yeah, that was recent.
Wow.
In Vegas. It was, seriously.
We thought he would get out there and play like 5 songs. So I put it on my phone. I've got it. He played 37 songs.
Wow.
And it was on his 50th anniversary with his wife. So he was pretty much serenading his wife the entire time we were there. It was great.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you ready? So here's a fun fact for you. So of all these podcasts that we've done, and I've asked that question, George Strait's in the lead right now.
He's
coming on strong.
And so if anybody out there that's watching this and they know George and they could let him know that he's an influencer.
He was a talent contest, right?
Hint from Pearsall, Texas. Hint. That we would love to put you on stage and say thank you for being an influencer and for being one of those that wore that blue and gold jacket, along with maybe Don Henley of the Eagles, maybe Willie Nelson, maybe Waylon Jennings through his son Shooter, maybe Pat Green and what he did for Red Dirt Music, but all those folks that wore that blue and gold jacket that had an influence.
I tell you one that's a neighbor of mine growing up in Huntsville was Cody Johnson. He's really been vocal about his experience and what the FFA did for him.
If you have any connection with Cody, by the way, I've got several feelers out there. I would love, for that very reason, Steve, by the way, that's very important to me, what you just shared. But for that very reason, I would love to interview him on the show for that very reason, because he has been supportive and he has been out there, and people that watch those things like myself, we appreciate that.
Yeah, it's genuine. It's his genuine story, and nobody's prodding him to say that. So
no.
We watched him in Houston, and he's the second person ever to sell out. Yeah. Garth Brooks was the other one to fully sell out. And I mean, you could just feel his heart. He just was so grateful for it. But he's incredible too. He's a great concert. So.
Yep, I've talked to some other people about him as well. So
I think him and George were both on state talent teams.
That's what I'm telling you. There's some folks there that I understand their celebrity, and I understand that there's a responsibility with that. But I think venues like this are a great way just to kind of bring them in and say, let's just talk.
Yeah.
And let people know, kind of what path you took and how you got there.
Yeah.
So,
awesome. I think that'd be excellent.
Anyway, all right. Well, we better wrap up. We've actually gone over time, but that's okay. It was fun, and I knew it was going to be. And I told you that listeners are getting 2 for the price of 1. And you can see exactly why I said that, because they're a great duo. They're an inspiration to so many. And Steve and Barbie, we appreciate you taking the time to join us for the Growing Our Future podcast.
Thank you so much for having us, Aaron.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up, always remember, if you want to know what the future is, grow it. Bottom line, you want to know what the future is, grow it. That means you better plant the right seeds, you better nurture them, and you better take care of it. And if you do that, you might just create the kind of future you want. Look at Steve and Barbie. They've done it. And they did it in their kids. They're doing it in their community, and they're doing it within the Past State Officer Association. So until the next episode of Growing Our Future, thank you for joining us. Everybody be safe, be encouraging, and go make a positive difference in the world. Thank y'all for joining us.